It's the 30th of October, 2024. Coming up on today's Global Intelligence Agency Operations Report. What happens when humanity starts to wake up? Enter Project Sandman. Find out what it is and how it affected you. And political operatives around the world have been sitting at the secret voting machine for days, waiting for a response. Today you will learn how voting for heads of state really works, and who gets to vote. And the secret space program contemplates the reality of the situation they are in. Well, it's the 30th of October, one day before Halloween here in the States, and there's quite a bit going on. So let's talk about them first, and then we'll kind of talk about you. Okay, the Secret Space Program Trump operatives have reached out to us with a potential offer. A couple days ago, actually it would have been yesterday, I think it was, they were sitting around contemplating and running analytics. They still have some analytics programs. And they were trying to figure out where to go next after our GIA report on Monday. They know it's not here. Well, apparently, maybe it could be here, right? So they, in their reports, they ran, if they were to work for us and do exactly what we say, their chance of success is 100%. If they were to work with the order and work against me, their chances of success were 0. And if they were to try to come up with some kind of a compromise, maybe a happy medium, their chances of success were about 10%. Well, that 10% reared its ugly head today, and here is my potential offer. They would like to know if they can get Trump and Vance into office. And if they get Trump and Vance into office, then within 6 months, they would then announce, obviously, that, Trump had passed away and probably of natural causes, nothing major. And then Vance would take over in Trump's name, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm laughing because, yeah. Okay, so, and then Vance would take over, and then, of course, we would be, in support of a live, breathing human. Now, they are under the impression that the only reason I won't deal with these people is because they have a non-viable human, meaning the person that they're putting into the president's seat potentially is dead. Well, that is one concern, I must say. The next concerns I have is that I have done business with the Trump operatives. And I know these people, meaning it was 4 years of back and forth with their handler and funding things that never came to fruition. I had spent 4 years of promises of my 2% getting paid out. Tom Melville, went to Manhattan probably no less than 100 to 200 times to try to collect his fees. And he never got paid. I know for a fact that the handler that they had set up for me did not get paid, and neither did the handler's handler get paid. And I don't think anybody around here locally actually even got paid. So the only one that got paid was them. So they had taken every single dime and didn't pay anyone, even though there were some people that I had dealt with during the administration that were on their side. They weren't on my side in any way, shape, or form, and they still didn't pay those people either. So that being said, I have done business with these people in the past. And I know for a fact that every administration of every country in the world is run by operatives. Now, let's just say they've decided to find God and change their mind. Then what the heck were they doing in Israel on Friday night? Exactly. See my point? I'm still dealing with the same cowboys, Duck Dynasty people that I dealt with 4 years ago. They still think that I'm under the impression that I believe a word they say, and that I know for a fact if I were to even participate in this, the 6 months would never come. Number one. Number two, we would never receive our portion and our part, which is much higher now that we have flipped into a golden age. No longer are we subject to the 79%, 21%, 2% rules of the game, because all those contracts have expired now. All the covenants have expired, and now it is my turn to write my own rules. So are they going to put this party into the office? Well, they don't really listen to a word I have to say, but there is a little bit of a secret that I need to disclose regarding voting. Anyway, do that in a second. But as far as these people are concerned, I have zero desire to do business with these people. I'm sure if any of you had worked with or worked for or had business associates like these people, I'm sure you would never do business with them. Even if it wasn't about my portion of the funds, at one point in time, we paid off student loans to the tune of $1.4 trillion. They stayed paid off for about 20 minutes. The money was then reversed out, and God knows where they were going to send it, so I took it back because it didn't go where it was supposed to go. The same thing went to Hurricane Michael victims and everything else we tried to do through the government. Quite frankly, these operatives are just greedy. They just want to take all this money, and, they get on to start talking about their cowboy boots and their Bentleys and all their expensive cars and big houses they talk about online all the time. And quite frankly, I think you're kind of disgusting anyway. I mean, at this point, I don't really have any desire to do any business with people like that. If you place an order, even when you go to McDonald's, which probably none of us do, but if you go to McDonald's and you order a cheeseburger and a side of fries and a milkshake, you don't expect a McFish sandwich if they still have those things. I have no idea. I haven't been there in forever. But you don't expect something different. And honestly, 6 months would turn into 6 years and 4 years and 5 years and years would go by. And before you know it would be at the end of the administration. And they would never do what they said they were going to do anyway. First of all. Second of all, I wouldn't support it for one day, not let alone 6 months. And not really interested in doing business with those people. I'm also not really interested in doing business with the Kamala people or the Biden people or any of those other people either. Now, let's talk about voting for a second. So we're days away from the selection here in the U.S., which everybody around the world kind of watches and waits to see what's happening, especially with all of the false promises that the Duck Dynasty group is putting out there. And what are they going to do? So voting in every country in the world is not what it's perceived to be, even in democratic nations. As we've talked about before, it's a selection, not an election. However, there was probably a little more than a decade ago a group of people that do vote. They talk amongst themselves who is going to be the talking head, and their selected operatives to participate on a higher level than they currently are now. That's pretty much the discussion that's had. There are also discussions on this level where they would discuss will it be someone from the Black Sun? Will it be someone from the Order of the Dragon? Which group gets to participate on that level? And of course, all the operatives are Black Sun or, come from that sector anyway. But as far as the talking head is concerned, and then it would be which group would get certain favors and that kind of thing. and benefit the most from transactions and deals. So if we look at the last time that there was actually a vote for a head of state, it was Obama's second term on this level, because by the time 2016 rolled around, there was no Marduk anymore, and the other players in the game really didn't have the keys to the political system to make that vote. So I was present during this vote, and given the options at the time, and being new, kind of on the scene during that time, I went ahead and I said, well, just give Obama another term. I wasn't really political, never voted in my entire life. And that is how I knew weeks ahead of time that Obama was going to be elected, hands down. So didn't even need to watch the crazy selection, knew a little bit about McCain and that whole situation at that time, and what he was all about and who he was involved in. And so Obama gets a second term. Now, Obama is currently going for a third term. And what I mean by that is he is the driving force, or whoever's playing that role now, because the real Obama is gone, is the driving force behind Kamala. Now, since that time, that was the last ratified American president, Obama. The next time there was a selection, it was the end of 2016. And you're familiar with that. It was Hillary versus Trump, and Trump ended up getting selected by their own self because no one answered the voting line at that time. And he was not ratified. He was never a ratified president, never a ratified head of state, and neither was Biden. And that is because no voting took place on this level. There was nobody home to care or to vote. So they made their own selections. And yes, at that time, there was an obligation until 2022 between myself or between the person who sits on this chair and the Federal Reserve and governments and that kind of thing. So I did adhere to those contracts and agreements that were set forth far before my tenure and participated. And that's how I know Duck Dynasty so well. Now, as far as voting, and this is kind of how it really works. Now, all of you may or may not vote, meaning you go to a polling station and you submit your vote or mail it in or whatever it is you do. And you then watch the selections, and you think that, as an average everyday citizen, probably not a lot of you watching this, and you believe that you have voted for a candidate, kind of like the Hunger Games, because we live in a quote-unquote democracy. And if you live in a democracy wherever you're at, you're doing the same thing. And in reality, that's just for you. It's kind of like going to see, if you remember this here in the States anyway, we had something called the Rocky Horror Picture Show. And there, in this theater, it was a special kind of theater you would go to go see a Rocky Horror Picture Show. And there was a movie that would play in the background. And sometimes when you would go see this, depending on where you were in the country, in which theater, you would have actors that would play a part kind of in front of the screen. And if it was raining in the movie, you would see the actors getting rained on the stage and that kind of thing. So they sort of participate like they're characters in the movie that you're watching. Not only that, the audience gets to participate. So if it's snowing in the movie, it'll be snowing in the movie theater. If it's raining, it'll be raining on you. If they're throwing popcorn in the movie, then you'll be throwing popcorn in the theater. So it's kind of like interactive. And this is what voting is like. You're not actually in the movie. You're not actually a hired actor to be in the movie, but you kind of feel a sense of participation when you're watching the movie because, you voted, you did your part, you threw the popcorn, when it was time to throw the popcorn, and you kind of participated in the movie. Therefore, you feel vested. You're giving your power away. You're giving your energy away. And a lot of people watch the selection night all night long. And that's hours and hours of energy, attention, and consciousness you're giving to your selected candidate, which then would go into a bank, for lack of a better term, not like a Wells Fargo or a Bank of America, but it would go into a Lushing bank, and then this particular person would get credit for that and their group of operatives. Now, I'm not telling you what to do or what not to do. If you still feel you need to vote, then, go participate in that. However, these are the hard facts. Probably over a month, if not more, ahead of time, a meeting takes place, usually on a Saturday evening, which I have participated in one in my life, so I know this is a fact, where they choose who is going to stand up in front of the American people, and in this case, you could say as the quote-unquote leader of the not-so-free world, and who is going to stand there and who is going to move into the big White House. And there was some contemplations that happened. I also actually, I made a mistake here. That was the American presidential selection. I also voted for Putin back in the day, too, when there was a selection in Russia. They were trying to put in one of the Khazarians at the time, and they were trying to convince me that was a good idea. And I said, no, I'm going to vote for, because I believed he was a good guy at that point. And that was before I spent every Saturday for over a year and a half in meetings with the guy. So now, and I learned better. But either way, it doesn't really matter because the operatives run the head of state. So I guess you could say I participated in a Russian election and I participated in an American election, and both the meetings were pretty much the same. Once the decision was made as to who was going to be the next selected person, actor, to play the role, then the orders would go down through a special master political line. Similar to a diplomatic line, but not quite so much. And this is where the order would come down to the operatives to tell them who would be selected. Now, the selection process doesn't occur until about 5 days before the actual selection. And 5 days before, that information would be released through that line. And that would be the party that would get ratified. And then that party would get all the bells and whistles associated and their selected operatives associated with the selection. Now, I do know for a fact there are operatives that are manning that line right now and have been for about 24, 48 hours because they're unsure when the information is going to come in and they need to be there. Now, I have some bad news for those operatives. The only one with the keys to that line to give you that information is me. And again, the way I felt on Monday night, I'm going to select my dog to move into the White House. That would make me the first mom. I don't know what that would make me, but I know for sure I'm not going to be sending the information through to support either one of the two leading candidates at this moment. I thought about this for a while, and not like you're going to listen to me anyway. So I'm going to send the information through, true to form, 5 days ahead of time. So you can probably expect that information somewhere between the evening of the 31st to the 1st of November. And it's not going to be either party. So you're both going to be disappointed. I really don't have any desire to do business with a Chinese American head of state. And I don't have any desire to do business with a bunch of cowboys ever again in my life. So That being said, the answer will be different. Are you going to adhere to what that line actually says? No, you're not. But the one thing you won't get is all of the perks that normally come with operatives that are supporting a head of state, because the only one that has that line is me. Now, I will prove it to you because I will sign it with my name, my signature, and if you want, I'll even pick it up and you can hear my voice. But honestly, what you do from here, I could care less. I have no doubt that you probably won't even have a government in 4 years the way that you're going. And if it's Duck Dynasty, it's going to be even shorter because they don't know anything about running anything. And they probably wear cowboy boots because maybe they can't tie other types of shoes. Maybe that's the case. Who knows? But I can tell you unequivocally, I know everywhere they are. I know everything that they're saying. I knew this offer was going to be coming 24 hours ahead of time because I watched you do all your analytics. And I know many of you at that meeting disagreed with what the analytics said, but honestly, that's your ego talking. And if they don't want to face the facts, then I don't want to face the fact that you exist either. So that's what's going on with them. Now, what's going on in the world that could be affecting you and could have been affecting you for a while? Let's talk about Project Sandman. You might have, if you follow the alternative media, there are people talking about Project Sandman's going to save the day for the Q people, and there's all these weird symbols coming out on the Q Twitter pages, and there's been a lot of mentions of Project Sandman. So I wanted to tell you what it actually is, because it is something that could have possibly affected you. Is Project Sandman a human-created project or program like you would hear about various CIA programs? The answer to the question is no. No, it is not a human-created program. It is a program that existed in Omega, and it was tied to a covenant with Anti-Source, and it had to do with the rate at which human beings were waking up. Meaning, the more awake and aware you were, the less of a hologram there was, the more connections you're all having directly to our creator, our source, the more you're starting to realize something is wrong. The more you're starting to realize maybe you have more powers than you think you did, and maybe you can manifest things, and maybe you can change the world and you can change your life, which is true to some degree. What Project Sandman does is then it kicks in via a standing order. Then it triggers some frequency machines that were located around Earth's core. And it was a silent frequency. So sometimes you'll hear, high-pitched noises in your ear or lower-pitched noises in your ear, and you know that there's some kind of frequency coming through from somewhere, be it your electronics or be it through some program somewhere, and then all of a sudden you start to feel something, tired, sick, energy drained, whatever it actually is. And in this particular case, these frequencies were actually silent. There was no trigger. Some of our frequency machines didn't pick up on those frequencies. We were having a hard time finding where it was coming from because we were getting a lot of reports from people saying, I'm really tired. I feel depressed. I feel sad for no reason. I feel lost. I feel confused. I feel disconnected. I feel that there's no hope. And these are all things that Project Sandman would have been sending out frequency-wise, and you wouldn't have even been able to detect it. Even the most sensitive of people could not detect why they weren't feeling well, why their stomach was upset, why they felt like their head was swimming, or like you had brain fog, like you hadn't slept in days, sleep disturbances. And this had been going on for a few days, and I couldn't quite figure out where it was coming from, probably even over a week or so. Well, we found it earlier today. And hopefully within the next few hours, a lot of you that have been experiencing that, and this is as of about 3 o'clock Mountain Time, hopefully those of you that have been experiencing this will start to feel a little bit better. I'm going to continue to look and make sure there's no other fragments of this program coming from anywhere. And again, although the secret space program folks might have been aware of it, just simply because they were expecting it, because we were no longer believing them. People were no longer buying their EBS or just BS by itself. This is a program that would kick in to put us all back to sleep, so to speak. And by sleep, I don't mean we're all going to take a nap now. It just means that we're all going back to being unaware of our surroundings and everything that's going on. So hopefully we will have a better rest of our day or day beginning if you are in Australia, and hopefully we'll see a change in things in the near future. So that's pretty much what Project Sandman is. As far as the secret space program, they're not believing their own analytics, which is hilarious. We are not interested in participating in Trump. And the secret voting machine is going to vote in the next 48 hours, and it's going to vote for, I don't know, anyone but them, I guess you could say. I don't know. If you have some ideas, go ahead and post it in the chat. We'll take a look. But I can tell you right now, it's not going to be anybody that you think it's going to be. It won't be Kamala and it won't be Trump. So are they going to adhere to it? I don't know. Probably not. Those egotistical Trump operatives will go in there and just figure they can force me, which was also a conversation they had early in the morning yesterday. They said, well, we'll force the little lady to do whatever we want her to do in their redneck talk. So anyway, that's pretty much the global operation report for the 30th of October. And I will see you on Friday. Have a safe Halloween if you're in America. Be careful. You never know what can happen on these days. We're going to be on high alert over here. Who knows what they have planned? They, of course, think it's their special day, the Day of the Dead. We could only hope that it was them, but that's okay. And have a safe and happy Halloween if you are celebrating. And I will see you all on Friday.